just start quickly to let everybody know that we talked last remote meeting about using a consent agenda, so things are a little bit out of alignment. So I'm not skipping over anything yet. So our first agenda item is announcements, correspondence, and distribution. Does any member or admin have anything to say?
Yeah, the policy subcommittee meeting met this evening. We discussed the field use policies, purchasing policies, procurement policies, and maybe to be changed smoking policy, but that general gist.
Excellent. Any other announcements or correspondence? I have one on my desk here. I did receive this email too from Mr. Rosidi from the high school building committee. It's lengthy, so essentially what I will do is summarize that he was sharing his support for the information that we're going to hear later tonight with the Chapter 74 programming and also the different grade configurations that we'll hear from. So thank you, Mitch, for that and for your support. And that's all I have for that, so we can move on to invitation to speak, and there's no one here for that tonight, so we can cross that off. Chairperson update. Real quickly, you have a link to the year-long agenda. I made the adjustments that Megan asked for. Again, this is a fluid document that we're using just as a guide. Melissa has it to kind of help set the agendas as well, and as things come up, we'll shift and adjust if we need to. One more piece that I have on my list here that came in late today, and I will get this email to you, you all tomorrow, is the Attorney General's office on that open meeting law complaint did reply today. Is a 3-page letter response that was sent to us. So in short, they are declining to move forward with it, but there was a lot more in there that I did not get a chance to read, so I'll pass that on to everybody else, and we'll have a look at that if we need to. On to the report, the superintendent of schools.
Great. So the opening of school this year was incredibly positive. We currently have 4,605 students as of yesterday. The Family Resource Center registered 231 students over the summer, which is the most in the past 9 years. I'm going to say that again. 231 students were registered over the summer, which is the most in the last 9 years. So as of August 30th, there were 43 students on the Family Resource Catalog, or Center log, which means there's 43 students kind of waiting to come into the schools in addition to the 4,605 we have on the books right now. It's been incredibly busy there. So I think, I'll give you an update on those numbers at the end of September, probably either at the second meeting or the first meeting in October, when we have a chance to kind of like look, and then we'll also know who isn't showing up too, which, last year we had a lot of movement in, but we also had a lot of movement out. So I think we were either net up 5 or down 5 last year, so there wasn't a tremendous upswing in terms of enrollment. But again, having the highest number of families registering over the summer is a concerning start, based on, we're starting at one of our highest numbers. So,
quick question on that.
Sure.
Is that because we're just getting better at registering up front?
Well, I think with kindergarten, absolutely. But I think the majority of the folks that came in weren't necessarily kindergarten families. So I think we're getting a lot better at outreach with the kindergarten families, and I'd say the preschool families also, because that filled up pretty quickly too. These are like anybody from pre-K through 12 that came in, and there was this, smattering across the board. So I would say, short answer to your question, yes, but long answer is we're going to have movement throughout the year like we always do.
Okay.
And the question is, are we going to be, significantly net positive, or is it going to be more of like a balanced year like we had this past year? It's impossible to say at this point.
Thank you.
But it's concerning that we're already up that high. So the average for September over the past 7 years, excluding the one COVID year where we didn't really track the data because we weren't really live in school, has been about 101 students. So to start at 42 on August 30th, already on the log for September, means we're probably going to be above 101 for September. So again, we could have a bigger out this year. We'll have a better sense October 1st, and we track the numbers all year anyways. So kindergarten has 341 students currently enrolled, and we were concerned that number would be a lot higher. It's kind of like middle of the pack in terms of grade size. Our largest grade is 3rd grade with 364 students, and most of the grades are in that range, like above 300, but below 364. Parents, students, and staff are still acclimating to arrival and dismissal procedures. This is something we encounter every single year. We shifted the high school arrival and dismissal locations for the buses and car drop-off, and so far it's gone pretty well. Principal Otlin and our school resource officers have been out there kind of redirecting folks to the right location. And generally, it's gone okay. I think it's gonna get better as the year goes on. So far, so good with that. There are always transportation issues to be worked out, and our team is working quickly to answer questions and resolve issues. Dr. Consigli did an outstanding job of planning the new educator orientation a few weeks ago, and we have 23 new teachers and 4 new administrators starting with us this year. We also have 4 positions that, we had late resignations in the game that we're hiring for currently. Our athletic teams, music, extracurriculars are underway, or getting underway, and there's a great deal of excitement for the fall season. I had the opportunity to see a little bit of the boys' soccer game today. They were up 3-0 on North Attleboro at the half, and then I had to come back here and prepare for school committee, but it was a great day to be outside watching a soccer game. Dr. Shiraki Holly addressed our staff on the second professional day. He was returning from last year. He's focused on linguistically and culturally responsive practices, which was well received from our team. We had to, the size of our staff now, we had to split it with secondary and elementary, so we had 2 different sessions for us. We're well underway on completing the requirements for the eligibility period for the Massachusetts School Building Authority, which I'll talk about in a little bit more detail in a few minutes, and the school building committee has already met twice. The Stacey Boiler project is nearing completion, and I really want to give a shout out and accolades to the maintenance and custodial teams who did a fantastic job of preparing the schools for students' arrival last week. They did a fantastic job. Again, we did see some last-minute resignations, but our building administrative teams are in the process of interviewing candidates for any remaining open positions. Overall, we're well-staffed heading into the school year, probably our best in terms of staffing since before the pandemic took place. And we're looking forward to a fantastic school year. I have to say, the mood on the first 2 days with the teachers was incredibly optimistic. Although, COVID is still happening, I feel like, a lot of the anxiety and trepidation is kind of gone. So, I think people are coming in, I think with a very positive, there's a very positive vibe. Even walking through the buildings over the first couple of weeks, there's a very positive vibe. Now we had our share of crying, preschoolers and kindergartners, which we always do, but overall the mood was very, very positive. So that's the opening of school report.
Thank you very much.
And I'm happy to answer any questions if people have any.
Questions?
Sorry.
That's okay.
Thanks for the enrollment update, Kevin. I'm guessing based upon what you just said, there's no grades at which, or class sizes we're currently concerned with. We're able to navigate kind of across. We're always watching, and I know there's. And
off the top of my head, I can't remember which ones, but we've shut down like school choice into a number of grades just because we're concerned about the potential for growth.
Yep.
But there's no grade right now where I'd say, gosh, we're looking at an additional teacher at this point.
And 364, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then I know last year we were able to add an additional bus route to pick up some of our high school students. Is that something that started off the year?
Yeah, we started the year with that
Great.
route in place. So,
Thanks. Awesome.
and I'm hopeful that it'll improve some of the chronic absenteeism because we've got 2 or 3 stops downtown, and the reason we're not doing it district-wide is because the ridership on the secondary buses, particularly the high school, is a lot less
Absolutely.
than,
Makes sense.
and so we have that ability to
Great.
do that.
Thank you. Thanks, Matt.
Sure. All right, I see nothing else. We can move on to the MSBA project update. Kevin, you want to start off with?
Yeah,
the
and if Josh,
eligibility
you want to get
period?
situated up there too. So we've held 2 meetings of the school building committee, and today Principal Otlin will present the information that will drive the educational profile questionnaire, as long as we're all on the same page, and the Chapter 74 vocational educational viability form. The school building committee is working with James Reefstall, who was the owner's project manager for the Woodland project, and we have a long-standing relationship with him. He's very knowledgeable about the MSBA, and he's actually helping us and assisting us with the completion of the maintenance documentation, enrollment information, and he's going to be reviewing our submissions for the educational questionnaire in the Chapter 74 vocational educational viability form. So those are going to probably take a little bit longer, but they're still going to come in well ahead of deadline. But the maintenance one in particular is important because you can pick up basically reimbursement points to that one, and it's up to 2. So he's thinking we're going to get somewhere between 1.25 to 1.5 points. Nobody gets 2. But, somewhere in that vicinity is what we're shooting for, and he's reviewing what we have right now and making sure that we have all the documentation, all the forms that we need to make sure that we maximize the reimbursement for that particular piece. So I give you an update with a sheet with estimates on time and completion dates, and I'd say we're still in very, very good shape. We're in great shape. I think once the committee feels good about what we're proposing tonight, we'll do the formal write-up of both the educational questionnaire as well as the vocational educational viability form. And I'm in weekly contact with Nina, and sometimes multiple times in a week, who's our contact with the MSBA. She's always incredibly helpful. And like I said, the biggest thing is already done. We've got the vote. Everything else is just lining our ducks up. And so there's one shift we're going to be proposing tonight to look at from a feasibility perspective, and Josh is going to kind of walk you through all those pieces. So at this point, unless people have specific questions, I'd love to turn it over to Josh, and then maybe we can both answer questions. Does that work? All right, so you're nodding heads, so go ahead.
Thanks, Kevin. It's exciting to be here talking to you about the building project. It's been a long time coming. I want to start my presentation to you by sharing something that I've been able to learn just in the recent meetings of our building committee and from the consultant, which I think is really important for both the committee and our community to understand. What we need to do right now in the educational profile is we need to identify the options that we want to explore in the feasibility study. If there are options that we fail to identify at this stage, they will not be studied at the feasibility stage, and they will not be on the table for reimbursement at a later date. So at this stage, we're not committing to a plan, but we are laying out the different options that we want to explore in the feasibility study. There are two themes that have emerged in our discussions thus far that we want to update the committee on, and we want to ask for your feedback on before we finalize the narrative of the educational profile questionnaire. And so these two key areas are around grade level configuration and around the potential transformation of Milford High School into what's called a comprehensive high school. And I'm going to speak in more detail about that. So I'd like to start off by talking about the questions around grade level configuration. I think it might be good to pause, have some discussion, and then let me talk about the potential shift to a comprehensive high school. So with regard to grade level configuration, I think it is helpful for everyone in the community and the committee to have some contextual information around enrollment. I think most folks on the committee are very well attuned to the significant enrollment growth that we've experienced over a sustained period and the challenges that's placed on our facilities and our educational operations. If you look at enrollment growth district-wide from fiscal year 16 to fiscal year 24, net growth over those 8 fiscal years is 12%, an increase in 496 students from fiscal year 16 to fiscal year 2024. I know from my analysis, and I know that Dr. McIntyre and Dr. Consigli will agree, this growth is extraordinary and exceptional. There are only a very small handfuls of districts in the Commonwealth that have experienced enrollment growth at this level. And it's against that backdrop of enrollment growth that we think that grade level configuration is a topic that should be, reconfiguration is a topic that should be explored as part of the feasibility study. We need to think not just about Milford High School, but we need to think about all of the buildings across the district. And so I want to draw everyone's attention, particularly in the community. I know our committee is very familiar with this, but we have significant overcrowding at Stacy Middle School and at Woodland Elementary School. Although I wasn't here to experience it firsthand, I've heard from many, many stakeholders that the day that Woodland Elementary School opened, enrollment already exceeded the projected enrollment that was submitted during the MSBA build process. If we were to bring additional grade levels up to Milford High School, we have the opportunity to provide significant relief to the present overcrowding that we're experiencing at both Stacy and Woodland, and to build in some buffer for additional enrollment growth. Something that the school building committee chair, Jonathan Bruce, has highlighted is that the next opportunity to add square footage to the district after the high school project could be somewhere between 15 to 30 years away. So this is a really important opportunity for Milford to explore, because if we don't expand the instructional square footage at the high school right now, it could potentially be 2 building projects away. While it's not my decision to make, I've heard a number of informed folks take the position that the next project after Milford High School will be Stacy Middle School. And this renovations that were completed at Stacy Middle School in the 90s are 30 years old now. And even if there were to be another project at Stacy Middle School, my understanding is that it's unlikely that we could add any square footage to Stacy Middle School. There could be updates to systems, but that instructional space can't be expanded at Stacy Middle School. And if in fact Stacy Middle School were to be the next project, then it would be 2 projects out after the high school when there would be the next opportunity to add instructional space in the district. If we were to shift grade 8 to Milford High School, this would reduce student enrollment at Stacy Middle School by approximately 30 to 35%, an enormously significant reduction in overall student enrollment. If we were to shift both grade 7 and grade 8 to Milford High School, the stage could be set for a grade level reconfiguration that stretches across multiple buildings. So one scenario, I think probably the simplest scenario, would be that if Milford High School became a 7 through 12 school, Stacy Middle School could become a 5 through 6 school, and Woodland Elementary School could become a grade 3-4 school. That would mean that both Woodland and Stacy are carrying 1 grade less than they presently are, which would leave significant room for enrollment growth within the buildings if we were to experience sustained enrollment growth going forward. So again, I want to reiterate, I'm not coming to the committee tonight asking you to endorse a proposal to convert Milford High School to either an 8 through 12 school or a 7 through 12 school. It is my recommendation that in the educational profile, we are articulating our desire to study both an 8-12 configuration and a 7-12 configuration. As I stated earlier, the options that we identify at this stage are going to dictate what is going to be explored at the feasibility study. And if it's not explored at the feasibility study, we can't add it onto the project later on down the line. Okay. So let me pause there for a moment and invite any questions. I'll answer as best I can and listen to feedback.
Just the whole committee. Josh is doing a great job explaining. To make it really simple, what we're going to do tonight is ask Josh, the administration, to put this in the educational plan feasibility, which is going to dictate to the school building committee what to build, right? So we are now deciding what to tell the school building committee, to look at options, right? So this is exciting, actually. This is actually a really big deal tonight. So thank you, Josh, for coming.
Thank you.
And if I could just add, before you jump into the question, so basically what they'll do in the feasibility study phase is they would look at like 9-12 with a preschool, 8-12 with a preschool, 7-12 with a preschool, and then each of those 3 options with potentially a comprehensive component, which Josh is gonna look at. And then based on that, we'd come up with like the best option that would eventually go to the town. So we're not committing to anything. I wanna emphasize that again. Josh made that point, but I wanna emphasize that again. The only thing we're committing to tonight is we're committing to exploring those possibilities.
That makes complete sense to me, and I think exploring is absolutely the right way to go. And I think you just answered my question, because the pre-K, which currently sits here, wasn't mentioned, but that would be included on all the options. That's what I want to clarify. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Josh, are you going to continue on enrollment side, or are you going into the vocational chapter 74?
I think when folks are comfortable moving on from
Yep.
grade level configuration enrollment, let's talk about
Okay,
career
yeah.
technical education.
So with that, yeah, I mean, as Josh highlighted, some of the critical points, right, are this 12% population growth that we've seen, 22% growth at the high school. We know that we're at capacity at a lot of our schools. We've just had to add classroom space at Brookside, right? Those are some of my notes. What we've learned from James is, the MSBA, like their overall kind of how they look at building your school is all about the academics portion of it, right? So we know that as our student enrollment's increasing, we're going to need a bigger footprint for academics. So I think that needs to be taken into consideration. And I think outside of just kind of the school population, when you look at Milford, we know Milford's growing. And I think you need to look at it also at the state level, where there was just a law that was passed that allows for accessory dwelling units, all right? And these are 900 square foot attached or detached in-law style dwellings that can be constructed on a single family lot. These structures must meet local building codes, but do not need a special permit as they did in the past, and do not have to be immediate family in the dwelling. So I think that's something that we as this board need to consider, that we see Milford growing, and at the state level, they're looking for communities to grow. And so we've got to really take that into consideration, that our population is going to grow. We're seeing single-family homes come two-family homes. There's also, I believe, John may be able to speak to a little bit more, but there's 2 40B applications that have been applied for within town. So again, those 40Bs are going to, again, another thing to consider. So the accessory dwelling units, 40B projects, I think those are strong considerations of why a 7 through 12 configuration is going to be in our best interest. And the one question I ask is, if Milford is, if we financially cannot afford a 7 through 12 configuration, we can roll back that configuration to a more affordable one. So again, we're asking for a bigger footprint. If we can't afford that bigger footprint, we can scale it back to an affordable one. But again, why would we not go through for the 7 through 12 configuration? So.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Altman. I'm thrilled to see the forward thinking. I emailed Dr. McIntyre before the first school building committee meeting, and I asked him to send out the email to everyone else. And my first sentence was, think big. No, really, think big. And I'm glad that you're thinking big. It may come down in size as we go along, but keep up this forward thinking. I'm really encouraged to see this. So good job. Thank you.
So,
I'll just add quickly also that I totally support the idea. I mean, spreading out the options and getting an understanding from all the views is really important. And financially too, my head kind of goes to, if you look at the total cost as taxpayers we may end up paying between a project here and a potential project at Stacy, it may seem like it's going to be expensive to go an 8 through 12 or a 7 through 12 here, but if we don't relieve pressure on Stacy, as Dr. Otman said, there is going to be major discussions about what we do with that building in general and if we can even use it anymore. So what may seem like it may be more expensive right now is actually going to be more than likely quite a bit cheaper if you factor the cost of both projects together. So I think that the idea of looking at all options is an excellent that's an excellent plan.
so if there's nothing further, shall I shift gears to career and technical education?
Do we do a motion?
Oh, yeah, so that's a good point, Chris. Thank you for that. What I would like to do, since everybody seems like they're very much in agreement with this, is we can just officially vote to support this. We don't have to, but the idea of putting that out there, I think, is a good one. We can just show our full support for these options and let them carry forward. So,
I did write a motion if needed.
what's that?
I did write a motion if needed.
Go for it.
So I motion to include in the education profile options to include a 7 through 12 or 8 through 12 comprehensive high school and other options that benefit the project.
I will second.
Motion by Michael, second by Chris. You may have to send that over
I
to
will.
help her out. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you very much.
All right.
Now we can move on.
So the second concept that we want to study through the feasibility phase is the potential of converting Milford High School to a comprehensive high school. So I want to start off with a couple definitions that I think may be helpful. Our educational program today is what I would define. This isn't sort of official state nomenclature. I would call us a conventional academic high school. Okay? And by a conventional academic high school, I would mean that this is a high school that has every academic program that you would expect to find in a secondary school in the Commonwealth. Included in that is we have some career and technical education, but this is not a school that specializes in career and technical education. I'm going to use the abbreviation CTE for career and technical education. Career and technical education plays a very secondary role in our academic program. And the type of career and technical education that we offer at Milford High School is substantially less robust than what you would find at a vocational technical high school. So at a vocational technical high school, that's in contrast to a conventional academic high school. At vocational high schools, the schools specialize in career and technical education, and they offer the most robust form of career and technical education available in the Commonwealth, and that's what's called Chapter 74 program, and I'll speak a little bit more about what Chapter 70 programming means. A comprehensive high school is something of a hybrid between these sort of two extremes. It is a school that has all of the academic offerings that you would find in a conventional high school, and in addition, it has Chapter 74 programs. Specifically, for a school to be considered comprehensive, it has 5 or more Chapter 74 programs. A comprehensive high school is different than a vocational high school. At a vocational high school, 100% of the students are enrolled in a Chapter 74 program. In a comprehensive high school, any percentage of students may choose to elect to enroll in a Chapter 74 program. So it could be 10, it could be 20, it could be 90. I had the opportunity, as did many of my colleagues last spring, to visit Attleboro High School. Attleboro High School opened up a new building last year. It's an inspiring facility. Attleboro High School is a comprehensive high school. At Attleboro High School, 90% of the students at the school are enrolled in a Chapter 74 program. Now, it's noteworthy that 90% of the graduates are not going into the workforce, right? Just like at Blackstone Valley Technical High School, right? Where 100% of the students are enrolled in a Chapter 74 program, and 75% of their graduates are going on to higher education. Right? So enrollment in a Chapter 74 program does not mean that students are not college bound, right? But if students are career bound, the educational experience that they receive in a Chapter 74 program is superior to that of what we're presently offering at Milford High School. So I want to talk a little bit more about Chapter 74 programming and explain what qualifies as Chapter 74 programming. And I want to talk a little bit about the finances behind Chapter 74 programming as well. When students enroll in a Chapter 74 program, they must complete 900 instructional hours in the program prior to graduation. So for reference, and this is approximate, but it's pretty close. If you think about your standard academic course at Milford High School, an English class, a math class, a social studies class, a science class, that's approximately 150 instructional hours per year. 150 per year. Right? So 4 years of English is going to be 600 instructional hours. Right? In a Chapter 74 program, it's 900 hours. The 900 hours is concentrated across 3 years of study, grades 10, 11, and 12. So in each year, the student is enrolled in 300 instructional hours of coursework in a specialized technical discipline. So if you think about your conventional academic courses being 150 instructional hours, the vocational shop, which is the colloquial term that's used for Chapter 74 programming, it's a double block. It's double what you would have in a conventional academic class in grade 10, 11, and 12. But it's really important to note that that experience you have in grades 10, 11, and 12, it's all within a single specialized discipline. These aren't 900 hours spread out across 5 different sub-disciplines in career and technical education. If you enroll in an electrical shop, then you have 900 hours of instruction over 3 years in an electrical shop. This is a very robust, intensive, high-quality career and technical education program that prepares young people to both pursue higher education and to move directly into the workforce, into highly skilled positions that require a high level of training. Many members of the committee, I think you know very well, because you've heard me say this number before, and many members of our community are familiar with this as well, but I can't repeat this enough. 50% of our graduates are going into the workforce. 50% of our graduates are going into the workforce. These students will be much, much better off in the workforce if they graduate from high school as skilled tradespeople who have received the highest quality vocational education while in high school. A full 50% of our graduates, this is the end of their formal education. Right? And while I'm very, very proud of the academic programming that we offer to our students, our academic programming is explicitly designed to prepare students for college academics. So there is a significant misalignment between the orientation of our academic program and where a very large percentage of our graduates are going after they graduate. So I think it's in our students' interest for us to explore the option of converting Milford into a comprehensive high school, a school that offers somewhere between 5 to 7 Chapter 74 programs. I also believe that while the upfront investment for Chapter 74 program is significant, because it's more expensive to build shop space than it is your standard classroom space, that the nature of Chapter 74 funding is such that I believe that in the long run, the finances are favorable for the district. So every student that is enrolled in a Chapter 74, for every student that is enrolled in a Chapter 74 program, the district receives supplemental funding for the state through what's called Chapter 74 funding. The current rate is approximately $5,000 per student per year. This is not a one-time supplement. This is an annual recurring supplement. So you can imagine in Attleboro High School where 90% of the students are enrolled in a Chapter 74 program, this is a significant fiscal, this results in significant revenue growth for the district. Now that revenue needs to be spent on the Chapter 74 programming, right? And Chapter 74 programs cost more money than conventional academic programs. My understanding is that the monies that districts receive through Chapter 74 funding is more than sufficient to cover both durable and consumable expenses in Chapter 74 programs. In a comprehensive model, 9th graders in your school must be enrolled in what's called an exploratory program. And that means that throughout their 9th grade year, they're having brief engagements with all of the different Chapter 74 programs, so they can decide in the winter of their 9th grade year if they would like to apply for enrollment in a Chapter 74 program or not, and if they want to apply, which one they're going to apply into. So that is a requirement when you have 5 or more Chapter 74 programs. I want to clarify that when I'm thinking about Chapter 74 programs, it's not just any Chapter 74 programs. We want to provide Chapter 74 programs that are aligned to what we know are current and projected regional labor market needs. So I've worked very closely with our colleagues at Mass Hire since I've joined the team here at Milford, and consistently Mass Hire has identified 4 priority sectors in the region that both currently have supply shortages in the labor market and are projected to have sustained supply shortages going forward. And that's within the building trades, information technology, advanced manufacturing, and biomedical science. Right? So those would be the 4 clusters that we would be most interested in exploring Chapter 74 programming in. Now within this field that we call the building trades, there are multiple subdisciplines. There's carpentry, there's electrical, there's plumbing. So we could likely have 3 or 4 Chapter 74 programs just within the building trades cluster itself. But again, it's the building trades, biomedical science, information technology, and advanced manufacturing, which are the programs that we believe have the greatest potential to benefit our students when they enter the labor market and to benefit the regional economy as well. I think the last point that I want to touch on before I open up for discussion and feedback was a point that was raised at our most recent school building committee meeting, which was the concern that some in the community might have about investing in Chapter 74 programs when the community is already investing in Chapter 74 programs at our regional vocational technical high school. So there's 2 points that I want to speak to on that. The first of which is that I had a conversation 3 weeks ago with our liaison at the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, who's responsible for career and technical education. And I asked if she anticipated that the department would be willing to provide Chapter 74 funding for a comprehensive high school program at Milford when we are part of a regional vocational technical consortium. And her feedback is she thought that the department would be very enthusiastic about such a proposal. The second question as to whether or not this is what we should be doing is one for, I think, our elected officials and our taxpayers to be wrestling with. And I can certainly respect and understand why many taxpayers would be concerned that we would be investing in Chapter 74 programming when we're already investing in that programming at Blackstone Valley Tech. All I can say is that as the principal of Milford High School, I think it's my duty to advocate for our students' educational needs. And I want to repeat what I said earlier. 50% of our graduates are going into the labor market right now. I believe that they're not as well prepared as they should be. when they enter the labor market. And I believe the way that we can prepare them for post-secondary success is by providing them with the highest quality career and technical education while they're here in high school. The last thing I want to say, and I'm going to say this in every forum that I'm in where I talk about career and technical education in Chapter 74, is that if we study the option of converting to a comprehensive high school, and if the community ultimately decides to convert to a comprehensive high school, I think it is critical that we also make a fundamental shift in our schedule model at the high school. Our schedule is subject to collective bargaining. Our schedule, as it is currently constructed, I'm happy to answer questions for the committee now or at a later date if this is helpful. Our schedule, as it is currently constructed, if we were to introduce Chapter 74 programming, I believe that it would decimate our advanced placement offerings and our programs in both music and fine arts. Attleboro High School has a very impressive, simple, and sensible schedule model that has allowed them to enroll 90% of their students in Chapter 74 programs while sustaining all of their advanced placement and arts programming. So it can be done. This is not innovative. This is not experimental. There's a proven model out there for a high school schedule that can support all of these programs concurrently. But without a schedule change, if we were to convert to a comprehensive high school and not change the schedule, it would be my strong recommendation that we do not proceed down that road. Milford High School is blessed to have an exceptional high caliber academic program, and the foundation of that program is our advanced placement course offerings. This community has invested substantial resources over decades to ensure that we have a world-class music program, and that serves our students extraordinarily well. Our programming in the visual arts is also outstanding, and I would never want to sacrifice our core academic offerings and our programming in music and visual arts in order to achieve career and technical education. Fortunately, we don't have to, right? But in order to have our cake and eat it too, we do need to have a schedule change that would accompany a facility that could support career and technical education. All right. So thank you for listening, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have and interested in your feedback as well.
I just want to throw out there quick while it's still in my mind that I did have a chance to tour Attleboro High School too, and what Josh just said is really important to know. The principal shared that it's a package deal, the schedule shift and the CTE programming, and basically the way she explained it was the growing pains are real. The staff had a hard time, and it's a tricky change, but it's one Band-Aid that has to come off at the same time. You can't stagger it, you can't not do it. It just has to be shifted at once because, like you said, your alternative is you lose stuff that's very important to this community. So I'll open it up to the rest of you guys.
And Matt, if I may, just on that point,
Please.
Attleboro was a comprehensive high school before their new building, right? When they opened their new building, they shifted their schedule. And when they opened their new building and shifted their schedule, their Chapter 74 enrollment grew from 50% to 90% in 1 year. That wasn't about the facility. That was about the schedule change. When they changed the schedule, students didn't have to choose between advanced placement and Chapter 74, between music and Chapter 74. They could do all three.
Mr. Chair? Oh, go. Thank you very much, Josh. Even second time around hearing it, it just kind of reiterates, why this would be a good idea. It was only a couple of years ago, I think we were at 25% of our graduating class was going out into the labor force, and now we're at 50%. So also to note that, BBT is a little bit unattainable to some of our student population. So I think that it's important, although it is an investment, a little bit of in a sense, a significant investment to start up costs for some of these programs. I think it's beneficial to 50% of our student population. Therefore, it's a good thing. It's something that I want to support and be a part of. So again, thank you. I just want to say that I'm definitely in support of this.
Thank you, Josh. If anybody want more information, meet with Josh. I got to sit with him for an hour, and he lit up. This is really a passion for him. I wholeheartedly support this. I think, the demand in the town, BBT's at capacity. And we have such a demand for this that I just don't think we can say no, right? I think it'd be a disservice. From a taxpayer perspective, when Josh got deep into the reimbursements from the state, that looked really appealing, especially when you look over like a 10-year period, right? So the Upstart investment cost might be a little heavy, but then you look at 10 years out, and with that reimbursement to the state, it's a lot more appealing. So, this is a long play. This isn't a short play. This is a very, very long play. So thank you for all the work that you've done, Josh. Again, if you want more information, Josh has gone deep. So talk to him. I support it. I think it's great.
I think we're obviously all fundamentally here, Josh, or Dr. Otland, for student success, and I think this is going to be a critical component of that future. So thank you. I definitely support it, and also the really thoughtful approach to potentially which programming that we'd like to invest in. Could you clarify at what point in the process we have to make that decision?
Well, my understanding, and I wanna offer the caveat that I'm not 100% confident in my understanding of the
Okay.
process, not having lived through it yet.
Totally agree.
So, at the end of the feasibility study, I believe at that stage, the school committee will be making a decision about the school that the committee wishes to have built. And then it'll be up to town meeting, in the MSBA to decide whether or not they're going to foot the bill. I believe if at the end of that decision-making process, there is a decision to invest in a comprehensive high school, we will be formally applying for Chapter 74 funding at a designated time. Again, I have already started the conversation with our liaison at the department, and part of the Chapter 74 application process for conventional high schools requires a consultation with the regional vocational high school, and Dr. McIntyre and I have already discussed that, contingent upon the outcome of tonight's meeting, if there is support amongst the committee to explore this in the feasibility study, we will be reaching out to our colleagues at Blackstone Valley Tech to start that consultation process.
Great, thank you.
I definitely support this like everyone else does. The one question I have, and this is to anyone who can answer it, if you can, at any point would we essentially pull out of Blackstone entirely if we are meeting the needs here?
I didn't know.
Okay.
I checked with Jerry months ago. No,
Okay.
it's locked in.
That's fine.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it's far more complicated. It would
I'm
need
sure it is.
It votes and,
Yeah.
from other
Those-
towns to release us, so yeah, it's very complicated
I was gonna add that I
or difficult.
don't wanna go against what everybody's saying, but they did inform us at Attleboro that they did pull out.
Okay.
But, as they put it, it's a big project, and to Dr. Outland's point, we can't offer everything that BBT can, of course. Well, we could, but it's gonna cost a little more than anyone's gonna be willing to say yes to, so.
Sure.
Was that all you had?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, yeah, and so I was interested that you brought up the community's feeling on BB2, because, I've had some discussions with community members about it, and my go-to is, it's hard to worry about the impact on BBT when they're just not capable of fully supporting our students' needs, and it's a mix of they're full, their enrollment doesn't have the space, and there's other factors in there too. So obviously our importance is what our students need and want, and the focus that you have, I think, is excellent. I know this was the first discussion I had with you when I decided to join school committee, and like you said, the excitement 4 or 5 years ago. You've probably been at this a lot longer than that, and it must be great to see this starting to actually move in a direction of something. So I fully support it, not just for those 50% that go into school, but also for people like me who did go to a trade school. It gives you an edge on other students in the area because you get a chance to see what you might be interested in, and now you're picking a college not just because you like the name of your friends are going there, but you're going into a program that you know you already like, and that also helps those kids stick into that program and finish out their 4-year degree, which we're also seeing is not very common these days. So I fully support it.
Thank you. Matt, if I can just add to that, I think you highlight a really important point that not everyone who enrolls in a Chapter 74, as we said earlier, many students who enroll in Chapter 74 programs go into college, right? Chapter 74 the Chapter 74 experience can be hugely beneficial for the college-bound student in giving them an in-depth career exploration experience, right? It's not just training for a job, it's figuring out what you are passionate about and what you like to do. And there's also the opportunities for students to develop a whole host of soft skills that are important in both the collegiate and professional setting that are hard to cultivate in our sort of traditional academic classes. So there are many, many benefits to Chapter 74 enrollment for students regardless of their post-secondary trajectory.
Going back to Megan, to your question about the decision process, and just to kind of add on to your explanation, it's again much like this whole 7 through 12. If we go with a comprehensive, it's an option, and we can we can go with or pull back from. So that's the nice part about, it's easier to add it on now and just say, no, we can, or yes, we can,
Sure.
so
It won't
later
be an
on.
option later.
And I believe that was in the, I wanna say, I thought it was more in the springtime at one of the meetings. Like, don't quote me on that. Do you recall that? As far as when that aspect happens, as far as in part of the,
I think they greenlight us to go into the feasibility study.
Yeah.
And again, I
I
could be
don't
wrong on
wanna
this, but
speak
my
either, but
understanding
yeah.
of it is, I think as we put these two, like the vocational kind of document together, I think the point of feasibility study is they're either saying, yes, this is something we're gonna approve you to look at, or no, it isn't.
Right.
And, then it becomes that option that
Yeah,
you
so,
talked about.
anyway, and I can get you the answer on when, pretty much from
Thank you.
our consultant.
Yeah, that's a great question for James.
John?
Thank you, Matt. Josh, I just want to say this was an excellent presentation. Thank you very much. It was very enlightening. I've heard bits and pieces from others here that are on the school building, not just here, but who are on the school building committee. This is great. I would support it. I'd echo what everybody else had said here wholeheartedly. I'd support it wholeheartedly. Yeah, the community's invested already in BVT, but we have a very limited number of kids that have the option to go there, and a far greater number of kids that would benefit from the Chapter 74. Chris, not to pick an argument with you, you said if half our kids can benefit. I'd go with what Josh said, that 90% of our kids might benefit from it. But
I'd like to be
just
corrected on that one.
just
That's fine by
cementing
me.
your point. So
Yeah.
I'd support this wholeheartedly. And again, this was an excellent presentation.
Thank you.
You have anything more?
One last question. You're in charge of curriculum. What do you think about this whole thing?
Love it. I think it's the way we gotta go.
Thanks.
It's the best response.
I love we never wonder where Craig stands on a topic, but I very much appreciate that.
Well, thank you for the time and the support tonight, and I think we're gonna be talking about this a lot more in the near and long term.
I assume you have a motion?
Nope.
We-
The last one.
The last one covers it all. Fantastic.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you, Josh.
I put the word comprehensive. And any other benefit.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Fair enough.
Do you guys want to vote on this one too?
No, Michael said his wording of the
We use
first
comprehensive
vote,
high school and any other benefit.
including
Okay,
comprehensive high school, so it's a good thing we said yes.
Perfect. I was gonna do it after all this, but we just did it, so.
Got it.
That's-
All right, so that moves us on to some community use pieces, Director of Community Use vacancy currently, and I am going to abstain from the next two discussions for potential conflicts.
Okay, cover yours.
Yeah, I won't listen.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, so this is exciting. We get to appoint the community use director tonight. So what I want to do is turn it over to Kevin and ask for who he recommends, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so, I don't think there's a lot of drama connected to this. I'd like to recommend Chris Burns as the next Director of Community Use. He's currently serving as the Assistant Director, and appointing him would lead to no disruption of service or learning curve, because he's already, doing, I'd say, the vast majority of the role. He's done an exceptional job in the Assistant Director role, knows the programs, knows the community, understands systems and schedules, and has many ideas of where to take the community use program into the future. And I think if you appoint him, you'll be putting the community use program in very good hands.
Do we have a motion to appoint Chris Burns the Director of Community Use?
I have a motion to appoint Chris Burns as our community use director.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it, and hoping that we'll have some discussion.
Any discussion?
Yes. Are we gonna then set up contract negotiations with him?
What'd you say?
Are we gonna then set up contract negotiations with him? I mean,
I think that'd be the next step.
because he's not just gonna stay where he is and move
Right.
up, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just, yeah, also, because I motioned for it, certainly would support Chris in this role. I think he's done a great job as the assistant, and just taking over as the head would be just, overall beneficial. Had many conversations with Chris just as far as his thoughts of the future, and certainly like the direction that he would like to see the community use program go, and some of the programs that they're adding on either this year and the next couple of years. So, great.
Any other discussions? All in favor?
Unanimous.
One abstention?
Unanimous.
No, it's not.
One abstention.
Well, unanimous, but one abstention.
Matt abstained.
I abstain.
The rest of us
Did
voted
you
yes.
abstain or recuse?
Recused technically,
Recused.
yes, so I was
Okay,
not
he's
part of
recused.
that vote.
He's not included in the vote. All right, moving on. So tonight also, with our new policy that we did with community use, which feels like forever ago, we are going to appoint their board members, and it's gonna be staggered for the first year, or it'll start the staggering, if that makes sense. So there's a list of names: Lauren Smith, Jeremy Kernan, Karen Sweeney, Ronald Creasia, Tony Chinapi, Tim Holzsnyder, and Judith Dagnes. So this is a slate. Any other discussion on this one? Pretty straightforward.
When were the last two appointed, Michael?
They're not. We're going to appoint them tonight.
So we're approving, were you asking to approve this, or you're just sharing this?
We're asking to approve this. This is now the new slate
Got
according
it.
to our policy.
Sorry. So this is incorporating the appointments that
Yep.
are forthcoming. Thank you.
correct. The,
Okay.
So
Just
there
clarifying.
the
were no,
policy is annual now.
there
so-
were no other applicants or people that reached out?
No.
Thanks, Sean.
Yeah.
That's the
yeah.
question I was getting at.
Yep. This is it. And then so the new policy every year we're going to do this.
Understood. Thank you.
Right. So this is the start.
Great.
Do a motion.
I'll motion to approve the appointments as listed in the document.
Second.
Second.
Meg. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes. Matt recused himself on that one.
Now I'm back. On to the Woodland Turf and Fence, Woodland Turf Fence and Netting project. So this is on, excuse me, this is on the agenda tonight. And I wanted to thank Chris and John ahead of time because they picked up on the project over the summer. So if anyone's been by the Woodland Field, they will note that the fence is there and it's completed. There is no netting on the North Vine side right now. So just to give a background, and Chris, I know you probably have deeper details. If I miss anything, please jump in. But last December, Principal Kernan asked for a fence around the turf to protect the turf from people riding across it. So the committee agreed, and also in our discussions, we decided to add a similar netting that is on the parking lot side, on the North Vine side, to keep objects from flying off the field into the woods. At town meeting in May, the town meeting members did approve the $150,000 article to cover the fence and the netting, and at some point over the summer there was a bit of miscommunication on what was going to be put in with the vendor and with central office. So what ended up being constructed was the typical fence you would expect around the field. On the North Vine side there was a 10-foot fence. So that's where we stand right now.
Backstop.
It's
Sports backstop.
a backstop, sure. Yes, no, he's right. It's more like a backstop you'd see at a baseball
Like you'd see on a
field.
baseball field.
One end of it is higher. So the discussion needs to come back to the committee tonight to decide how we want to move forward. And I will then turn to Chris because I know he has more information, I believe, to share on this.
Yeah, I guess I got a lot to. So unfortunately, it's in my opinion that this shouldn't even be a topic of conversation tonight. At the fall of 2023 special town meeting, I presented Article 37, and in that article, this is the town. We motioned that the town vote to raise and appropriate a transfer of some money in the amount of $150,000 to be spent under the jurisdiction of the Milford School Committee for the purpose of upgrading the woodland turf with a fence and safety net. The background was the woodland school turf was completed in 2017. This request is to install a 5-foot chain link fence around the perimeter of playing field to reduce inappropriate usage of the field, skateboarding, bike riding, scooters on the turf field. A fence will act as a deterrent and will help maintain a safe, clean playing field for our youth teams. The additional net will also provide a barrier on the opposite side of the field. So the article clearly states that. The vote was unanimous at town meeting, and prior to even adding this to the article at town meeting, we, the school committee, had this on the capital plan for a couple of years. I even found an old email of mine that actually that I sent in 2018 about asking for it. So that's how long ago I requested that. we discussed adding the fence and the net to the capital plan in an open session and voted unanimously to add it to the town meeting warrant. At no time did anyone question no net and a fence only option. Now we are here to discuss the netting portion of the project. Had the project moved forward as anticipated, this again wouldn't even be a conversation tonight. We are here again to discuss a project that was already previously discussed by this very committee because the scope of the project was not clearly articulated to the facilities department by administration. The request clearly states for a fence and a net. Changes to the proposed 5-foot-high fence were made by the Woodland building principal without conferring with the school committee. We, the school committee, have the jurisdiction of the project as outlined in the warrant article. We now have a 10-foot-high backstop fence that was installed and no net as specified in the warrant article. And now we are questioning the net installation. There are opinions that a 10-foot-high backstop is tall enough. I disagree, and there's also spoken to multiple soccer coaches that a taller net is needed. There is a reason a tall net was installed on the parking lot side of the field when it was built. A 10-foot-high backstop, if a 10-foot-high backstop was adequate, they would have put it in instead of the net on the parking lot side. To note, a standard soccer net is 8 feet tall, okay? The nets at Woodland Turf, which is a 9v9 field, those are 7 feet tall, leaving only 3 feet of height to stop a ball. And if a ball misses over the top of the net, most likely the ball is going to carry over the top of the net and carry over the fence, or the backstop. Lacrosse is also played at this facility, and there too is a game where the ball tends to fly over the net and over players' heads. So, this improvement project has to enhance the safety of the facility, and that's to prevent kids from chasing an errant ball pass into the wooded area behind it. All right? This is a community field, not a Woodland grade 3 to 5 field, right? The request is funded by all the taxpayers of Milford, and not one person thinks that his opinion, no one said that a 10-foot tall fence was a better option during town meeting, right? The net will complete the project as proposed. The funding is there. We are within budget, right? Right now, we are within budget by $40,000. The fence was $80,000. The additional netting would be about $30,000. So again, $150,000 ask. We're good. This is just stalling the project, in my opinion. We simply just move ahead with this project as proposed in the warrant article. This is what the town expects, and this is what this committee should expect. So, thank you.
Before you jump in, I want to add one more thing that I probably should add before and I forgot. I did check in with Town Council Murray and asked him specifically what we're tied to with the article language. And he said that we are not tied to any specific wording so long as the committee believes that the solution that becomes the final solution achieves the spirit of the discussion, which is something hard to contain objects. So that was sent along by Brian Murray. John, go ahead.
So I think that, this really raises two fundamental questions, but only one that we should be talking about tonight. How do we get here? And there's a long chain of discussions or lack of details that, weren't conveyed properly, but that's a conversation maybe for another time or not at all. But right now we have a 10-foot backstop in place, and we have a 4-foot or 5-foot fence. What is it?
5-foot fence around the perimeter.
We have a 5-foot fence around the perimeter, and the question is, do we think that's adequate? And is that what we want to settle for, or is that what we want to see how that works and move from there? To me, it's there's an argument that the 10-foot backstop is sufficient, but Chris already made the point. If it was sufficient, we would have done that at the other end of the field, and that's a point that I made when we had our subcommittee meeting last. So, I think it's something the full committee definitely needs to vote on. As Matt pointed out, it's we can change the specifications if the committee chooses to, but the question is, do we want to?
It's just a question about the net that you want to add. Is that a net from the base, like the field, all the way up, so it'd be over the 10-foot fence, or is it from the top of the 10-foot fence to the height that we desire?
if we do it just like what's on the parking lot side, it would be from grass level all the way up.
So what would happen to that 10-foot fence that's already existing?
Much like the 5-foot fence that they put around the backside, it's there. So the I guess the good of that fence is it's a stronger material down at the bottom. So obviously a lacrosse ball, it won't skate under that fence. So, but yeah, my thoughts would be, that it goes right from the ground and up, no different than what's currently there.
Can we add an additional ring, if you will, to the existing 10-foot fence, so make it 15 feet and as a fencing material as opposed to a net, and is that more cost effective?
That hasn't been on the table. My guess is no.
Yeah. Right, we discussed that. I think you get to a certain height
And it's
and
not.
you start worrying. Now, for the netting, as we talked about, so just so everyone knows, the facility subcommittee met on the field and talked about this. It has to be poles cemented in the ground and go up because the rigging and the netting is
Sure.
much heavier. So the footings have to be bigger, the poles are bigger. If you've been there, you would see the pole starts about this big and tapers up. So it can't hang on the fence itself.
Yeah, I figured as much as that.
But as far as extending the fence, I think that would be more of a discussion or a question if we wanted to pursue that for probably a fence vendor, somebody who would be able to say whether or not those poles can handle that. Obviously, your baseball backstops go higher than 10 feet, but I believe what we see there now are just 10-foot pole sections. So I don't know that they could just take another one and stick it on top like a Lego and hope that it stays up there. So
Sure.
that's just my opinion on that.
It's one last point. I agree extending the height either way, whatever way we can do it. But if we can do it a little bit cheaper, for that too.
Michael?
So, speaking as a soccer coach, I'm now U.S. soccer certified, so I feel qualified to answer this question. So the
Which one haven't you felt more qualified to answer?
So yeah, I would say 10 feet is a little short. When you have a 7-foot goal line. To Brendan's point, though, if we could find a cheaper option to go a little higher, I think it'd be great. But yeah, it is a little too short.
Are these typically projects we would leave with a building principal to execute on?
So, no,
Okay.
and I think the problem that we had here was the request was fence and netting. That was not communicated to the vendor. Facilities showed up on site, and he looked at the principal and said, "What are we doing?"
Got
And they talked about it because I don't think it was communicated to them what came from town meeting.
it, got it.
So the
Okay.
wrong,
Good
basically,
takeaway.
the wrong individuals
Okay,
made a decision
helpful.
thinking that it was in their hands.
okay, thank you.
Do you have anything else?
No, it's helpful. Is the 30K an official quote, or are we just
No,
projecting?
it was a
Okay.
ballpark. I want to say that it was roughly 20 to 25, but that was for some reason with green poles. So if we went on black to match the rest, it was another 5.
Okay.
So 30 seemed like it was pretty close, right?
So right now Carlos is soliciting bids for it, so
For the
I think it's gonna
increase.
come in, I wouldn't talk hard numbers at this point, but I would say it's probably gonna come in somewhere between 20 and 40,000.
That's the
Thank-
ballpark.
okay.
John.
So I think either way, it comes in within what town meeting appropriated, and then, going forward, we may wanna bring anything like this that's a capital project and make sure that we review all the specs before it goes out to bid, like we did with, the Brookside edition, so that this doesn't happen again.
Right. So my stance on this one is really that we have an incomplete project and the variables have changed. So the question now for me, what's in front of me, is what do we do? Right. I did talk with Chris Burns. I get that a 10-foot fence is barely over crossbar. The fence is 10 yards behind the net, so it's not right up against the back. So the trajectory of that ball has to be flying a bit more. The other thing that I find is pretty important to understand is only 5th grade and 6th grade youth soccer play on that field. It's not big enough for anybody bigger, and it's too big for everybody smaller. So you're literally looking at 96 total kids between boys and girls, if I had to guess, on what's going on there. So my takeaway is, now that we're where we are, do we just move forward and spend an additional $30,000 putting that there, or do we wait for this fall season and talk to the coaches? What's flying into the woods and what's not? I do know that from the people I've talked to now and from talking to Chris Burns, there's been no problem with the fence. The only other sports that play there are lacrosse, like Chris said, and field hockey. A lot of those shots, again at a youth level, miss to the sides and wide. They do miss high. You hit a crossbar with a lacrosse ball, and God knows how high that ball's going to go. 10 feet is probably a little tight. The question is, if it contains 95% of the objects going into the woods, do we spend $30,000 more to get a handful of shots, or do we not? That's what I got on my notes here. There you go. Chris?
I guess the only thing is, that's all theoretical, right? We know that the 30-foot high fence or net is going to stop everything, right? And it's ready to go, it was part of the scope of the project. That's where I guess we're at, we're within budget again. So I just fear that, we all know that right now, the 10-foot high fence sounds like that's not even going to be enough for the soccer ball. I think also I would add that this is a community field, so it isn't always just 3rd through 5th graders that are up there. If you go by on any given weekend, there's other community members that are up there, and some of those community members are the ones that help pay for this field and will help pay for that netting. So I think that needs to be considered. I know when I coached, if the fields were closed because of rain and you could get up on that field, you could have 6th, 7th, 8th graders up there and at least be able to use that field. So there again, the net's a little bit smaller, but at least give them the ability to kick a soccer ball at speed. And again, when I coached up there and I had to go chase soccer balls within those woods, it's nothing fun. It's not an ideal situation. And that was years ago, and it's only gotten thicker growth-wise. So again, that's why I hope that we can support going with this net project.
John?
I guess I just want to ask us to ask ourselves, if we're going to make this concession, why? I mean, is it because somebody screwed up in emails or voicemails or interactions along the way? Because it seemed like a great idea when we voted on it. And I don't know, that's what I just ask all of us to think about when we make this decision.
Yeah, I would say that the concession for me would be fiscal responsibility. If it contains 95% of the balls, what are we spending $30,000 for? We did say netting, but we never once discussed any other option. We didn't check with a vendor. We didn't talk to anybody who puts these in and say, what do you guys usually put there? I mean, the netting on the other side makes sense to me because you're protecting cars and smashing windows and cars. The other side, if a ball hits a branch and falls down behind the fence, there's no damage, right? It's annoying to have to go get a couple of them, but
And then the questions that didn't come back to us were, instead of a fence, we're going to do it, instead of a net, we're going to do a 10-foot fence for this much width at an added cost over a 5-foot fence of this, and we didn't get the option to make that.
absolutely. And as you said, this is a
fiscally
two-part.
responsive-
This is a
responsible
two-part.
decision.
Right. This is a two-part problem, and we're really only trying to figure out what to do moving forward with one. And as John said, I don't know how we address or if we address the other one. Megan?
So given we don't have a vote on the agenda, Matt, and it sounds like Carlos is already doing outreach for scopes of work, maybe we could put a vote on once we're understanding what those potential scopes are. The point I haven't heard is really around safety, which I think would be my main concern. If we're saying it's a safety issue, I think I'd have an easier time supporting additional funds. If it's more, it's annoyance, the ball's in the woods, I'm not sure of the cost benefit. So
Right.
just as we discuss it, just understanding those components.
Yeah. So it is my understanding that the word vote doesn't have to be on the agenda for us to vote on.
Okay.
But
We
I
don't have
thought-
dollars either, so I think
Right.
it's.
We don't have, yeah, and I don't know that I would say, unless the unanimous decision is finish the project as we initially said, then I
Mhm.
think we obviously need to wait for
Okay.
the money. And I've thought about the same thing. The netting really doesn't provide physical safety for the players, because they can twist an ankle on either side. When the soccer teams practice there during the week, they're playing the short way. The ball's going over the 5-foot fence all the time. Now they're running, or more than likely, knowing my players, trying to jump the fence and running over those stone walls across the path. So I don't know that there's necessarily a player safety thing in there, but containment, obviously, it disrupts a lot if you have to go find a ball in the woods.
I've been back there multiple times. The bramble, as I call it, is it's not fun. There's a lot of sharp objects. The brambles stick. There's thorns. So that's I wouldn't. Maybe it's not a safety issue, but it is a
No, that leads to it. Yeah.
super huge hindrance going back there looking for balls. There's there's a lot of poison ivy back there. I mean, it's just not a fun place to be. So
Thanks.
Yeah, I guess last thing for me, if the net or whatever fencing option we decide needs to extend the whole width of that back length, or if it can be just more, around the goal area, if that makes sense. So
So right now, we're asking for quoting to match the other side.
existing. All right, yeah. But I'm just saying if we can make that work with a smaller net, to keep the cost down a little bit. Again, I'm kind of err on the side of, a little bit more fiscal caution, but I mean, do the project right too. if it makes sense to do that.
I believe the other side net comes up the sides by about 5 yards, right?
Yeah,
Ish.
It
Something
does.
like-
It
It rounds the
closes
corner.
It rounds the corners. Yep. Yeah, I would just say to that point, like, the money is there,
I
right?
get it.
Like, it's not, we're not going for additional funding, right? So we've set aside and allocated for those funds, you know, and we're not even gonna spend up to the full out, you know, allotment, which is nice. From the safety standpoint, as you heard Mike say, that bramble back there, yeah, I think that is a safety aspect of it, that, you know, having kids, and that was the pitch to town meeting, was to prevent students and athletes from having to go into that bramble, and it's pucker bushes, it's, you know, it's, poison ivy, it's ticks, right? So how do we, mosquitoes, yeah, like, so how do we prevent it? You know, yeah, we build it a little bit bigger, right? So again,
Can
We're
I
at-
ask, can I ask a question?
Please.
So if we don't spend that money, the fund, the balance, when we close the project, do we need to return the balance to the town?
yes.
We don't get to keep this for future maintenance?
No,
Nope.
no.
That would be nice.
Great question.
So for the safety nets, how often do we have to replace it, and how expensive they are? That'll be in our operating budget going forward.
The only information I have on that is that I was told the vendor that was there said that the net that is there now, that I believe is 8 years old or 9 years old,
It was
16,
put in 2017.
17.
he said that that should have been replaced years ago.
Oh.
But
Yeah.
the reason, or
Yeah.
one of the reasons, is that that net was not properly maintained. It should be lowered every fall
Winter,
because
yeah.
rain and snow and ice weigh
Huh.
on it.
Right.
They break pulleys, they bend poles, they tear netting. So going forward, the nets are supposed to be brought down at the end of the season so that they're not ruined from that kind of stuff. So, but I would still imagine you're looking at probably, if I'm randomly guessing, you know, every 5 to 10 years, it probably has to be replaced, but
Yeah, that could be a 10-year capital expense, like
Yeah.
like refinishing the football field. It wouldn't have to be in the operating budget.
So we'll punt this to another meeting until we have a dollar amount. We can do that if everybody wants to wait. I do know that, I think, was talking to John, that there is no time limit. We don't have to get this done because the fence is done. We don't have a certain amount of days to finish this. We have time, so if we wait until we get the information, that's fine. We're not gonna lose the rest of the money on this until the project is closed.
I guess how I feel is if the quote comes under, then we go ahead and do it. If it comes over, it comes back to school committee.
That's an
Or
option.
do we wanna just sit and talk about it again?
The other option is we can, as you said, we can wait until we get the quote and see if everybody, especially, you know, Brendan and I, if the number's not crazy and it makes sense, or if there's options on the table, then, you know, we can discuss what's in front of us, and once we get the quote, we can say yes or no, if we wanna do it that way.
I mean, I'm fine with moving forward tonight and letting Carlos and the administration finish out the project, just, you know, prove up to the amount that was already approved and finish it, with the subcommittee, and Carlos figure it out. I don't think it's gonna come back to here.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion for me.
Alright, you wanna clarify that?
I have no idea how to clarify that.
Say it again.
Motion to finish the project within the budget, as seen fit by, the director of operations, or do you wanna
Maybe
clarify
based
that?
on the
It
initial
has
scope.
Do you have
specified.
something?
By the
Yes.
scope of work? Yeah, do you have
Did
something better?
you have something ready?
No, I don't. I was just
Sure.
gonna say, I specified in Article 37 at the special town meeting of October
Perfect.
2023.
I'm gonna pause for 1 second to give her a second. Did you get that?
Just,
That's very
a
nice.
motion to complete the project as specified in Article 33, 37,
I got a picture
Or
here.
how about possibly, you know, with the subcommittee's approval?
with the subcommittee's approval.
Article 37.
Can you repeat that one more time?
Motion
Like,
to
I'm seeing
approve,
confused looks over there.
motion
Yes,
to,
that's why I wanna pause this one.
motion to approve finishing the project within the scope of Article 37 upon the building subcommittee's approval.
I'll second.
Alright, motion by Brendan, second by Chris.
Can we have discussion on that?
Is there more discussion?
So is the subcommittee approval, John, the comment you were making earlier regarding looking at the scopes of work? I think your comment was around ensuring that we were comfortable with the
I
work.
just think we don't have anything really quantified, like what we're approving to move forward with the net, so at least if
Right.
we can come to a
Okay,
consensus.
perfect, thank you. Thanks.
Or maybe the motion would be amended to for unanimous subcommittee approval, I don't know.
We might be coming back now. All right, any other discussion? All right, motion by Brendan, second by Chris, all in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much for that.
Well-crafted motion.
Yeah, thanks.
Yes, good job.
First try, too.
All right, on to the report of the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction and Assessment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No vote required or motion to be made here, just an update. Our orientation was held on the August 20th, and we welcomed 20-plus new teachers, or new educators, we call them, into our district, because they're not just teachers, they're psychologists, they're adjustment counselors, guidance counselors, those sort of folks. So anyone that falls within our teachers union comes to that. They come for 2 days. First was orientation, a full district. They meet with a number of district folks, learn about the building. They learn about the district strategic plan. They learn about their benefits, that sort of thing. And then the second day, they spend all day with their mentor. So they're in their buildings and they're meeting directly with their one-on-one mentor. Our first year, our mentoring program is a 3-year program, but really the bread and butter of the program is the first year of the program, where they're aligned with teachers or whoever, guidance counselors within their buildings who have similar jobs, and they spend an hour plus with them every week. Our mentor coordinators, we have 4 of them, 1 at every building. They do a good job building out the program with the mentors, and they have a specific cadence of things that they need to be working on from week to week, which they do. And so, they're spending, 50 plus hours with these first year educators, getting them acclimated to Milford and really supporting them through the first year. And I think kudos to all of our mentors for taking that on. And they have their own responsibilities to deal with, but then they're really, whenever our new educators need them, they're there for a text, a phone call, whatever, come down to my classroom, that sort of thing. And then our mentor coordinators are really supporting the mentors and the mentees through that. The second piece of our first year program is we meet with them 6 to 8 times during the year after school. We meet usually by building. We have a much smaller group this year than we have had in the past. The last couple of years we've had 70 plus, I think, both years. This year we're way down in the 20s, which is great. So it's better to work with a smaller group because we can support them better and meet their individual needs. The other part of our mentoring program is our year 2 and year 3. We are continuing that. That's with a partnership with Ashland Public Schools and Mendon Upton Public Schools. We partner with them and we do learning walks at Mendon Upton and Ashland, both in year 2 and year 3. We are going to add to that this year with our instructional coaches. We're going to lead learning walks with our year 2 folks just within Milford. So I think that's something that our Milford people have been asking for, and we're going to see how it goes this year and try to add that into our annual mentoring program. So a lot of good things happening, and a lot of I think the most important part of our mentoring program is that it's led by the teachers for the teachers. And so they do a really good job at that. I don't know if anybody had any questions.
I see none.
All right.
Thank you very
Thank
much. Right, on to the report of the school business administrator. There we go.
Thank you. So the first item is the personnel update. There's no vote needed, just for your information. The next item is we would like the school committee to approve a out-of-state field trip. It's for the Stacy Middle School students to visit Quebec City in February.
And just to add, this was a regular trip pre-COVID. It's back to being a regular trip again as part of the French Club at the middle school.
Right, looking for a motion to approve the out-of-state travel request from Stacy to Quebec.
So moved.
Motion by Chris, second by Michael. All in favor? It's unanimous, thank you.
Thank you. Next, I would like the school committee to accept the gifts and donations.
Thank you. I have a gift here. The donor is West Ed, and it was given to Stacy Middle School in the amount of $200. And just sharing the information here. This is for Stacy's involvement in the PAL study during the 21-22 school year. Motion to accept the gift. Motion by Megan, second by Michael. All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. All right, that moves us on to a new agenda item, which is the consent agenda. So just to remind everybody, the spirit of this is to execute one vote to cover all of these housekeeping style items that really don't have a discussion. Just like town meeting, we do have an opportunity before we start a motion to pull anything out that may need a discussion. We cannot discuss anything in there once we go forward with it. So that being said, I'm going to mess it up right from the beginning. Given the Attorney General's email earlier tonight and me not having enough time to thoroughly review their response, I'm going to recommend that we skip the approval of minutes tonight, and we'll do that next time. I see no opposition to that. So, with that said, tonight's consent agenda is going to include the approval of warrant, which is in the amount of $2,353,000. Sorry, let me start over. $2,353,067.80. It's going to include professional development in the amount of $25,183. And it will include materials to be declared as surplus, which is old illustrative math K through 5 materials that are from 2021. Motion by John.
No,
motion?
unfortunately, I don't know if I should do this after the motion or before, but I'd like to pull out the warrant for discussion and the professional development for discussion,
Okay, that's fine. We can do that.
which is unusual for me, but.
I had a feeling this would happen. All right, we're gonna pull out the warrant and professional development, so that leaves only surplus illustrative math materials for K-5. And motion to approve that surplus.
I'll motion to approve that surplus.
John, motions.
Second.
Second by Michael, all in favor? That is unanimous, thank you. So, slowing down and going back, let's go to the warrant, John.
Okay, so I've heard bits, pieces, rumblings, but we've had a discussion in the past. Our transportation director, who's no longer community use director, is his salary still coming out of the revolving account for community use?
It is.
It is.
Yep.
Okay.
Piggybacking off of that, have we looked into whether or not that's allowed since he is no longer splitting roles?
We have not.
Okay. Anybody else have any other thoughts on that?
No.
No? I would recommend that we probably do look into that because I know that, I'm trying to decide if I can say this or not. I know that there was concern with the last business administrator on the process and how to shift the funds when his role did split both. So I think we should look into that to make sure that we're doing this the appropriate way.
Yeah, I know, to add on, I know it's like a tight budget season, certainly it is, but I think that we're looking at it from trying to separate those two business units overall. So I feel like it's in the best interest for our new community use director to be able to kind of see where his budget is and where he can go, and then also looking at what is the impact on our budget by bringing that community use, the transportation director fully over. So
Yeah.
if there are aspects of it that we need to talk about in the short term, I think then we can bring that up within the next few meetings, but certainly I think, again, from a business standpoint, I look at it as, let's just try to break those two. If we're breaking the two roles, why would we not break the, where the funding's coming from?
Yeah, so I'm going to repeat what I said, I think the last time we discussed this, and Chris mentioned it at the beginning too, so I appreciate that. It's an incredibly tight budget year, and our margins are razor thin this year. And that's my real concern with shifting it over, particularly now that we're having, it's September, it's the beginning of the school year, and, you know, we're starting to get into the season of like, you know, special ed expenses increasing. We're unsure what enrollment's gonna be like. That's my only concern there. I would, and I've said this before, I'd be fully supportive of doing it for the 25-26 school year, when we have, you know, the ability to prepare for it going into the budget season.
John?
Yeah, so what we said before, we discussed this at length.
Yeah, yeah.
We questioned the legality and the morality of it, and we also discussed about, we have the ability to transfer like we do every year versus in multiple different accounts, so.
Yeah, so I'll look into it and see where we are. I'll probably consult with the gentleman in the rear, or Brian Murray, the town attorney, one of the two, depending on where the appropriate question is directed, and we can kind of go from there. If that makes sense.
Any further discussion on the warrant? All right, I will repeat then. I am looking for a motion to approve the warrant in the amount of $2,353,067.80. Motion by Michael. Second by Chris. All in favor? I have, put your hands back up again, please. 5 in favor and 1, not in favor.
Opposed.
Opposed, thank you. That was the word that I literally couldn't think of. All right. Got that one? Awesome. On to the professional development. John?
Yes, I have a question. So, you know, in this razor-tight fiscal year, we have one employee getting reimbursed for just under $10,000 for professional development course reimbursement. And it's my understanding that that's not a contractual obligation. Is that gonna be the practice going forward, or what's the justification? Because $10,000 is a lot of money.
I need to review that, John,
Okay.
and I can take a look at that and get a response for you.
Okay.
That is unusual.
Chris?
Yeah, to John's point, yeah, I think we're contractually, it's part of the MTA, so from the teacher side of it, correct? If I recall, so certainly I know that we reimburse through our school choice fund there, right? So, but also, I guess, do we reimburse non-union employees from our school choice fund?
Depending on the class of employee, there's similar programs in place.
Some contracts allow for it at the discretion of the superintendent, is my
Okay.
understanding,
Okay,
or my recollection.
but still, we're still utilizing that same.
It's coming from the same bucket of funds.
Same bucket of funds, right?
Correct.
That same saving, in a sense, savings
That one
account.
that's getting really low?
Which is getting really low.
Right,
Correct.
exactly, right, yep,
Correct.
that's why, so, okay.
Anything else on professional development? Okay. So I will ask if there is a motion to approve professional development, the amount of $25,183.
Oh, motion?
Motion by Chris.
Second.
Second by Michael.
Can we wait until there's an answer to John's question,
Yeah, that's
or
my
is there a
question.
timing issue to approve it sooner?
I don't know. I'll look at you guys for the
Alright.
timing. Sure, this is the perfect time for discussion.
Okay,
Thank you for that.
Yes. Do you want to pull out a certain amount, John, of someone that you're targeting?
No, I don't have that, I'm not making that motion, no.
What's the consequence of waiting? Is there one?
I'm not certain. I'd look to Wen for that one.
I wouldn't want to put some, you know what I mean?
No,
someone's
yeah,
I
anticipating.
agree
That's not
with
my
that.
intention, so.
I agree.
Exactly,
Okay.
I would,
Okay, so I'll.
So John, is your intent to pause this until we get more information, or continue and just get more information after?
Nope, I just asked my questions.
All right. Any more discussion? No. We had a motion by Chris.
Yep.
A second by Michael. All in favor? That is 5 in favor and 1 opposed. All right. That went much slower than it was supposed to. We'll try again
Super.
next week. Thank you, though. That was
Practice.
a good discussion that had to happen.
There's always next time.
There's always next time, that's right. That's what the Patriots will say. Subcommittee updates. I'll throw it quickly. Brendan shared policy earlier, and the only discussion that long-range planning had was around the Woodland discussion. We don't have to start that one again. Is there any other subcommittee updates? I see none. Future agenda items. Wow, really? Nothing?
have our great running list,
We have a huge list.
We do have, no, I'm not mad.
Oh, you want us, oh.
No, no, you
Oh,
can.
hold on a second.
You had enough to say tonight,
Okay.
no, we're good. All right, thank you. Yes, we do have a running list that I hope we can get to it as we get ramped up again. So, that brings us to adjournment. We'll be ending our open session for our meeting tonight. We do have executive sessions scheduled for tonight to discuss two things. The first being the continued discussions on the AFSCME clerical negotiations, and also to begin discussing strategy for superintendent contract negotiations. We do need a roll call vote, and we will not be returning to regular session. Roll call, Brendan?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm a yes.
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 That is unanimous. Thank you, and good night.